So did people not think about this before they got the animal?
A lot of the time when people adopt or buy a dog, they just, wanted, because they look cute, and then they just wanted the short-term fun companionship, but they haven't considered the long-term commitment.
How about you consider some of our other animals? Actually, they would be a better fit for you.
Like a hamster?
And for Europe, it's about $45,000 per person. Yeah.
$45,000 for one person?
Yeah.
That's a lot. Are you like me and thinking of getting a fur kid? I've toyed with the idea of always having a pet, but there's something that stops me. Like how my windows have no grills, so a cat is out, and I work a job with irregular hours, so I worry if I have the time to spend with a pet. And if you're like me and if you're wondering if you can make it as a first-time parent, then hopefully this episode will give you some food for thought. But also, could this be our cutest episode yet? Today on The Usual Place, I have Zuko, who is a shiba. I have Bowie actually, who is a blue kerry terrier pomsky. And Yoko, a Bernedoodle. Guys, hello. Okay, they're all getting into it. Okay, but we also have their owners. This is Diba, who is the Education Outreach Manager at SPCA. And this is Jamie from TheAsianPawrent, which is like an educational platform for parents, well, not parents, pawrents, who want content about, animals and also about businesses that you can produce for your pets. And these are his godchildren?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So Bowie's my godson. Yoko's my goddaughter.
Okay. You guys, welcome to the show with your very cute fur kids. Yeah, so Diba, when did you get Zuko?
Now he's 6. So I actually adopted him in 2019. So he was surrendered at the SPCA. Yeah, so that time my family and I were very comfortable with fostering. So we used to foster puppies or young dogs, and he came in as another dog we wanted to foster. So that's when we realized that he was a really good match for our family, and we ended up me becoming a foster field.
What made you decide to take Zuko home, like permanently?
I think firstly, because even though we were ready, right, we really wanted a good fit in terms of personality and a dog who could fit into our lifestyle as well. Yeah, we're not the most active of a family. We also had a bit of a scheduling to do, right? So when Zuko came in, we realized that he's pretty independent, and he was very comfortable with all of us. And at that particular moment, my family, we decided this is the perfect time. We felt ready, and it was an easier transition because we were prepared also.
Okay. Jamie, how do you become godparents to a Bernedoodle and a pomsky?
Right. So the story was about probably a year plus back, where I help out a friend to look after these two. And whenever they're busy, so I would be the one looking after them, walking, bringing them out. If they are sick, I do bring them to see doctors as well. And since
You're very hands-on godparent.
Yeah. So it became like a weekly thing, quite constant. So it's been like going for about a year plus now. So that's when I realized, okay, I love them a lot. I see them as my own as well. So I take them as my godchildren.
So my question as someone who is not in close contact with animals on a regular, how will I know if I'm ready for a pet or if I will be a good owner? Is there like a benchmark?
I think it's a very big question, right? And, I always have people asking me, even during my talks and everything, am I ready to have a pet? So I think it's a question that you need to answer very honestly to yourself when deciding if you want to have a pet. It's very important to see whether their personality, their age and everything would be a good fit for your family, because most of the time we don't adopt the pets, just us. What's important is those living with us as well, right? So then another consideration is, what kind of pets do you want? We talk about small animals. We also have dogs and cats. So just a personal experience is I wanted to adopt a cat, right? And even though I threw that idea in with my family, but my mom is not very comfortable with cats.
Oh, she's not a cat person.
She's not a cat person. Okay. So then I decided, okay, let's not adopt a cat, because I always believe it's a family responsibility as well. So since everybody has to be on board, I always tell the kids that I usually speak to, right, that sit down with your parents, your families, and talk to each other whether you're ready for that commitment. Yeah. Another thing that is also important is, the financial commitment of it, and also if you have the time.
Okay.
Yeah, because usually the thing that you do hear people saying is that the vet cost is very
Very
high.
expensive, right?
And it's
Yeah.
true, bringing them to the vet can be very, very costly. But another thing that's very costly is their day-to-day things.
In terms of like what they eat,
What they eat,
what
when
they
you-
wear, maybe we'll get to the clothes later, but yeah.
Yeah, bringing them out because not all of us have a car, right? So if you are planning to bring them out to some places, even to the vets, then we talk about transportation, which can be very costly, and food, treats. It's getting more and more expensive, and I think because they are most importantly a lifelong commitment, right? You really need to take care of them. So that's why it's important to consider these factors. And I always say sit down, ask yourself if you're unsure, maybe it's not the right time.
Okay, so you got to be like 100% on board before you like take any step, whether to adopt or like Jamie with
Yeah.
Yoko and Bowie, they
Yeah.
are bought.
Yeah, they are bought.
So why did your friend decide to buy them versus adopting? Sorry, I know that's always like a dicey thing, right? Between
Yeah.
people who choose to buy and adopt. So why did your friend decide to buy them?
For some families, they have preference because certain families maybe they have certain requirements, like they prefer certain breeds or maybe certain colors, or maybe they have certain allergic conditions they prefer dogs that don't shed as much. And also just the availability, like easier to choose from. For example, they might want to have a pet from a very small age so that they can feel the emotional connection right from the beginning. Yeah, and also some parents, if it's their first time having a pet, they feel like it would be easier to start from beginning to train, rather than maybe if you adopt, then there may be unclear health issues or maybe like certain behavioral issues that they need to tackle. Yeah.
Deepa, I'm actually quite interested with what kind of animals come into the SPCA, like especially when people buy them, right? So are there certain breeds that so I hear what you're saying, Jamie, like people want to, build that connection from the start, but also do people give them up after they, realize that, oh, okay, maybe this is not really the breed or I made a mistake in a way? Like what does SPCA see?
Okay, so commonly when we talk about pedigree dogs, right, most often they are much older. They do have medical issues, and so then they are surrendered to us. There's various reasons as to why people surrender their pets, of course. But when we talk about pedigree dogs, that's the most common ones. We don't really, rare occasions, we see a very young pedigree dog. Most of the time, they are senior dogs with health issues, and then they are surrendered to the SPCA for reasons. For example, they are no longer able to care for the dog because of their growing needs medically, or for example, they are not able to afford the veterinary cost when it comes to their medical needs as well.
So did people not think about this before they got the animal?
Yeah, I think sometimes I would always say it's about research, right? Usually some things that I do always say, right, is that when people do want to go over to buy their dogs, from the source where they do purchase their dogs, there's very little, most of the time, very little knowledge or information they receive about how to care for their pets. Right? If you talk about a Dachshund, Dachshunds are very small, they have tiny legs, and they do have health risks that you have to be quite aware of. So what happens when you love Dachshunds, but all you know is you love them and you want them as a pet? Right? When you bring them back home, you wouldn't know what are certain things that you should do from the get-go. They shouldn't be jumping a lot. There's a lot of things that you need to learn about their personality as well, and creating that environment to ensure that as they grow older, they wouldn't have certain health risks as well. So a lot of times when they're unsure, they actually don't know about these things. That's when the medical issues pop up and suddenly they don't know how to actually deal with it. Yeah, so I think that's the problem when it comes to when you just focus on certain breeds. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when people adopt or buy a dog, they just, wanted, because they look cute, and then they just wanted the short-term fun companionship, but they haven't considered the long-term commitment. So like what Diba said earlier, you have to always assess your lifestyle, evaluate your schedules, your living condition, do as much research as you can about the specific breed that you are going to adopt, to buy, because different breeds have different requirements, right? For health requirements, physical exercise requirements, etc. And a good way to start maybe is to volunteer or maybe to do some pet sitting to really see if you are ready for it. Yeah.
Actually, that's why I don't want a cat. So I don't think I would do well with a dog. So I always wanted a cat. And then I volunteered with a, what do you call it? Well, I volunteered with the shelter, and after that, I decided not to because it's a lot of work. I think people don't realize. So
Yeah.
I was scooping up poop of like 50 cats, and I was like, and the thing about it is the smell. Yeah, and that smell always sticks with me because it's stuck in the carpet at the shelter, and I was like, oh no, this I can't. And once it hits you, it's like, oh my God, this is like PTSD from my volunteer when I smell cat pee. So it's just like, no, I don't think I can have this in my house. And yeah, and then I have a friend who has 2 cats, and they're like peeing in the bed, and I'm like, no, my sheets are expensive. And then I would be mad. Like, even if you love the cat, right, or if you love the dog, and then you can't control what they do sometimes. So yeah, so I was like, no. Everybody's like, you should get a cat. You live alone. You know, I was like, I would love to. So I play with the community cats. That's my like limit. I'm not gonna have a cat. So I know that. But I want to ask you about this thing about lifestyle. What is the thing that people don't realize that they have to change about their lifestyle, or they have to have a certain thing in their lifestyle that, fits animals?
So in terms of lifestyle, I think some things that we usually do say is that if I have a very active lifestyle and I'm considering adopting, if I get a dog with a very high energy, it would be great because I like to go out, I can bring my dog out. But if someone who's a bit more laid back, I just want, I don't go out as much, then, I might consider more senior pets, right? They could stay at home, it would match the energy level would be the same. But there are some misconceptions which I usually talk to my friends about is usually they say if you're more if your lifestyle is very hectic, right? Or if you want to be more chill, adopt a cat. Because usually they would say cats can stay much longer at homes. You can kind of leave them alone at home for much longer than dogs, which I think is a very big misconception because cats also thrive on a lot of love, the kind of attention that you give them, and you shouldn't be leaving them at home unsupervised for a very long hour also. Yeah, so I think when you think about cats, right, some cats can be very independent, some cats love and crave attention. So in terms of lifestyle, what we can do, right, is kind of firstly understand when you're adopting, usually when you come over to the SPCA, we always do adoption counseling. So what we usually do is that when you come down, people usually have kind of like which particular cat or dog, or small animal they want to adopt. But what's very important for us is our adoption counselors would first look at their experiences. If they have pets at home, what kind of lifestyle they lead, and then we would see if the particular animal that they are having in mind would be a good match for them. But in cases we think that it's not a good match, then we would actually say, how about you consider some of our other animals? Actually, they would be a better fit for you.
Like a hamster?
Yes, I mean,
or
for
rabbit?
for small animals especially, we always say that some things that kids always tell me is before they want to have a cat or a dog, their parents might usually say, why not try taking care of a hamster? They're small animals, it's easier to care for them. But we always say they are small, but they come with mighty responsibilities.
Yes, I used to have hamsters too. And in the end, sorry, my mom had to deal with that. But so I'm just like, it's a lot of cleaning. Like any pet, I would say, like it's a lot of cleaning, right? Yeah, especially when you got 2 dogs. That's a lot of poop. I'm thinking about that.
That's why you need 2 parents.
Yeah.
I think no matter what type of pet, like what Diba said, they always thrive on the interaction, the care, the love. So like, during COVID, when everyone works from home, when everyone has all the time, then you see pet ownership increases like tremendously. But thereafter, like when people start going back to office, you also start seeing like globally where people starts to give up the pet because they no longer be able to provide the time they need for the pet. Yeah. So I think definitely in terms of schedule, time, you need to be able to make changes on that.
May I be neglecting my pet unknowingly? Is that a thing?
Yes, definitely.
How would I be doing that?
We always say that actually neglect is usually, or in most cases, right, done unintentionally. You don't intend to do it, but because of certain beliefs or certain misconceptions, the things that you do for your pets out of love can actually cause neglect.
Like what?
Yeah, so some things that do come up on top of my head, right, is for example, training. I think it's the easiest one. When you decide to have a dog, the first thing you think about is how am I going to train my dog to, for example, toilet train them, get them to sit, certain commands. So what do we do, right, is that we start Googling. Like personally, I started Googling, I started researching, and I was thinking what's an easy way, right? And you see a lot of videos that says, how do you get your dog to sit in 5 minutes? How do you toilet train your dog within a week? So that, for people who are unaware, can set an expectation. So dogs usually, let's say, it takes about 7 days, right? According to what internet says. And let's say you're trying to use that similar methods and your dog is not actually learning. That learning is not taking place. Then pet owners can get quite frustrated. Then they can resort to other kind of forceful methods. So that's why I always tell them that that is also a form of neglect, because you're actually causing a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort to your dogs. And
Because you're trying to train them in that like particular
Yes.
time to do, and then if they don't do it, then what happens?
people still use like certain aversive methods, like shock collars. People do use shock collars to still train their pets, and that's something that we always say at the SPCA, try the force-free training. It's not just kinder to them; it's a more effective way of training long term, right? If for Zuko, it took a while for me to toilet train him, with more positive reinforcement. You reward a good behavior, you slowly teach him that this behavior means it's a good thing, I will reward you with it. But if I were to scare him, if he's accidentally at a place and I'm doing something that scares him, he would do it out of fear. And it's not a very positive environment for him to learn as well.
Can I ask you guys, because I've seen some people do this with their pets where they smack them when they're mad at them. I'm like, okay, I'm uncomfortable with this.
Okay, so for myself, right, I can speak for myself, is I don't. Usually, there are certain things that I do with him when I was training him. And if he does something that he's not supposed to do, right, he has a bed. It's a very comfortable bed, but it's still a bed because he doesn't like to lie down for a long time. I would tell him to actually go there, lie down on that bed. So slowly he realized every time he did something that's not right, he's directed to the bed.
It's his naughty corner.
His naughty corner. So then, every time he did something wrong and he looks at us, he just runs to his naughty corner. Yeah, so after that, as we are reinforcing good behavior, and it comes more naturally to him. So I don't believe in, hitting them or doing something that could cause them pain, right? And instead, force-free training, it makes you feel good and it makes them feel good as well. Yeah.
I think some owners, I think different style, different approach. Like I definitely second Diba's approach. I think some people, they chose maybe the negative reinforcement because the effect is more immediate, but it doesn't last as long, I think.
So as a non-parent, should I tell people not to hit their dogs if I see it?
I think, if you want to go and tell them, because different people react differently. I think I always like to approach it in a more positive way. If you were to tell them that, hey, this is a better way to train them, a better way to make your dogs feel more comfortable, people are more susceptible to it, rather than just straight up telling them this is the wrong way to do it, you're doing something so bad, right? So usually I tell them that why not try a more positive way of training them.
Oh, so I shouldn't be like, oi,
Yeah.
like, stop it. Like, okay.
Yeah, so if they do get defensive, then they might not even take your opinion. Yeah.
Because they people do feel very strongly about
Yes.
how they look after the pet, and they see it as their own like kid. Yeah. So they always have the kind of mindset where you mind your own business, I do my own teaching kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any things that parents do that annoy you guys? Like maybe like, I know my colleague hates it when people run alongside their dogs with short legs and then make them jog for long distances, and then clearly the dog doesn't look like it can keep up, right? So that irks him, along with many other things about parents. But I don't know, is there anything you wish parents would stop doing?
Okay, some things, right, that I'm quite particular about, that I do advise people, is in terms of feeding their dogs. Sometimes people do feed their own, food that we eat to their dogs, because it's
okay.
not good. You shouldn't be feeding salt, sugar, this kind of certain ingredients is very harmful for them. Or leaving, I have cases where my friend calls me and said, oh no, my dog ate all my chocolates, and chocolates are toxic for dogs, right? So I always, those are some of my pet peeves. Certain things that's avoidable, we should try to avoid, right? And by knowing that what is it that's appropriate to feed them, especially if you have young children, it's important to tell them that these are things that you can feed them, these are things you shouldn't feed them, then there's more awareness also. But I say it's the wrong thing, it's just being more aware, because they are your responsibility, right? So Yeah, but what I'm always a bit more aware of is certain things I do for Zuko that people might think like, oh, what is she doing? Right? So one thing something that we always advocate is to not dress up your pets, right? So that's a very
Okay,
big
define dress up.
dress up. So when generally, like t-shirts or, I've seen people putting on sweaters for their dogs
Caps
as
as
well.
well.
Caps, socks, shoes.
Oh, why not though?
Scarf.
It's cute. I mean, it's cute, but not practical.
Yes, because it's not practical. Also because it's not comfortable for them. Because their body itself, right, it needs to release the heat. So usually I tell them, where do dogs actually release their heat from? From their paws, from under their belly as well. So what happens when you cover them up with clothing? And in Singapore's weather, it's really not good for them. And also another thing is when you put on socks for them or shoes, right? That's a way for them to release heat from their body. And by covering it up, that's why we talk about heat stroke as well. It's a very big thing that we talk about during our
Yeah,
education.
especially in Singapore, I would think it's like quite hot, right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, but what I do for Zuko is that I do put on clothes. I always put a disclaimer. He's wearing a t-shirt, but that's because of his allergies. Yeah, so because of his allergies, he itches himself quite a fair bit. Because of that, he'll start bleeding. So one way to deter that.
Yoko.
Yeah, so one way to deter that is that at home, we always turn on the aircon, but we always put on very thin material clothing for him to ensure that he doesn't scratch himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Jamie, you're going to say?
brands are getting very creative now, like to sort of like tackle those issues, right? They try to like produce clothes with like, materials that's cooling, like with the wearing shoes as well. A lot of owners like to wear, but there are also school of beliefs that if you wear like too much of a shoes, right, as they walk, it sort of like misaligns their joints, and over time it causes joint deformities. Yeah. Because instead of the normal gait that they're supposed to walk at, the normal angle of joint, but when you wear, they walk differently.
Yeah.
Do you guys mind it if people come over and touch your animal without asking? Because I know some people, for me, I will ask. I will just like look at because I do love animals, but I also know that people might not like strangers touching their animals because you don't know where their hands have been, right? So what is the protocol for people who want to touch other people's like cat or dog? I've seen someone walking a cat. I went to Katong, I saw a woman walking a cat and I was like, okay. And she attracted a couple of people. So what is the protocol like?
Just always ask first, like what you did. Like ask first whether, because some owners they don't want to. Maybe it could be allergy. They could be worried about maybe you having certain perfumes that the dogs don't like, or maybe like some dogs they just need more space. Like they get stressed out easily. So I think one of the way is to wear a yellow tag, like a yellow dog movement, to say that it's a global movement. Like if you wear that, it shows that the dog is a easily stressed dog and it needs some space, and always like ask before you touch.
Okay. So I also want to talk about something that came up earlier, which is the cost, right? Like if we are going to take on a pet, be it a tiny one or a dog, a pedigreed dog, cost is always a factor. So I want to ask, what is the biggest bill that you guys have for your dogs or that you didn't anticipate?
For me would be his food. So recently, because of his allergies, we cut down and we changed our lifestyle and everything, right? But I realized he's allergic to something that he's eating. This could be some sort of protein. So what happened is that I started buying different types of food, kibbles, which is very expensive. He was also on ZD because of his allergies, which is also very expensive.
Poor guy.
So recently he was on a salmon diet, right? Salmon kibble. It wasn't even halfway through the kibbles, I realized that it got worse. So then I put aside the bag of kibbles, and then I'm trying a new diet for him. So it's a whole new purchase. Yeah, so more than the vet cost that I spend on him, it's actually the cost on his food. Yeah, so that's the highest paid item for Zuko, and his toys, but that's my own thing.
Okay, Jamie, you have very expensive businesses, right? Like, from like a plane.
Yeah. So aside from food and vet costs, we see that parents are spending more and more on their pets now, and bringing their pets on holiday is actually a thing. It's like the in thing now. Like everyone having a pet, they want to bring the dogs abroad, the cats abroad. But with commercial travel, there's a lot of restrictions, right? With commercial airlines, they restrict your dog to be below, say, 8 kilos, including the carrier. It has to be below 8 kilos to be allowed in cabin. And even if they are in the cabin, it has to be in the carrier under the seat all the time.
That's not a very comfortable space. It's like, it's so tiny already.
Correct.
Yeah.
Imagine if you fly, 10 hours. So the bigger dogs, they can fly, but they have to be under the cargo area, which a lot of parents, they do not like that as well because, it could be dark, cold, it's unsupervised, they could vomit or having a seizure, but no one's there to care for them. So that's where we actually came about this idea of Singapore Air, where we actually charter private jets and co-share the seats. So we sell individual seats to pawrents, so that pawrents can truly now, every dog can now truly fly, no matter the size, no matter the breed. Because certain airlines, they also restrict certain breeds. Like if you have short snout, then they don't allow you to fly also because of the risk of asphyxiation, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Important question. How much does each seat cost?
Oh, so currently we have 2 destinations, actually 3, Hong Kong, Japan, and Europe. So to Hong Kong, per pax is actually $10,000 return. For Japan, it's $20,000 return. Yeah, and for Europe, it's about $45,000 return per person. Yeah,
$45,000 for one person?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And people have paid for this?
Yeah, so our more popular flight is actually the Hong Kong flight because it's a shorter distance to fly, shorter preparation. You only needed the 1 rabies jab, and it's also cheaper, as in compared to Japan. Japan's 20,000, but you need 2 rabies jab, and there's like a 180 days waiting period. So you need more than 6 months to prepare if you want to bring your dog to Japan. Yeah.
So would you say it's also getting expensive to be a pet owner in Singapore? Because I have some numbers here. So the local pet care industry was worth US $162.5 million in 2024. And that's like a nearly 50% increase from just 2019. So is it just because people want to spend more, or are things just getting more expensive? So is that something that people should consider, that it's now vastly more expensive to own a pet?
I think it's the shift of how we look after our pet, like how we see them. Like we used to just see them maybe as a pet, as an animal, but now, as more people choose not to have kids, but only to have pets, then they see the pets as kids. So they call it the humanization and premiumization shift of pet care, where more and more pet owners sees the pet as a human, and they want everything premium for them. Because they're not spending on anything else, right?
Like kids or...
Yeah. And some might even argue that having pet is cheaper than having a kid.
Yeah. Diba, what's the SPCA, I don't want to say line, but about spending on your pets? Like, is there something that needs to be discussed especially when you see people giving up their pet because... do people come and say, I can't afford this, right? Which you have said earlier, right? Yeah, but what were they doing that they couldn't keep up with their pet care?
I think most of the time when we talk about, I think usually we get when it's veterinary cost, right? It's not being, I would say, prepared enough. So when you're deciding to have a pet, it is expensive, but there are also resources that, things that you can do earlier on, right? That could easily prevent certain costs from occurring. So what I would always say is that it goes back to, are you ready to have a pet? So before I had Zuko, I realized veterinary costs can be very high. And when I was fostering him, I kind of knew he had certain health issues as well. So I started a savings account just for him. Yes. So my mom and I, we save money every month so that during a particular time, if we really need money for anything, right, we're able to tap into that account. And that's just for him.
What was his most expensive vet bill?
His most expensive vet bill was actually he hasn't gone for much, so maybe like blood works can be very expensive. For his allergies also, when he has to get a jab, just a standard, because I don't have a car, so usually I have to get Grab Pet, which can be very expensive, right? Transportation for them to bring them there, then your vet bill comes off, you pay, and then you have to bring them back home again. So that's very expensive. So that's why it's about being prepared. And sometimes when we are talking about other costs as well, it's about having a space. When small animals, when you're purchasing them, they don't cost much. But it's actually about once you bring them back home, right? We talk about rabbits. Rabbits actually need a very big space. They need...
Okay, yeah, you can't keep them in the cage.
If you can't, yes, yeah. So you need a very big space, a playpen, puzzles, because you're very curious. So you need to set up that whole thing for them. You need to make sure that you buy the appropriate type of food for them. It's all costly, right? Then you need to clean up after them. And because they're smaller animals, if you are to bring them out to the vets, right, you have to go to specialized vets as well. So then the cost comes in. So that's why when we talk about costing, it might not cost as much when you're first getting them. And then you think about later on, you're like, yeah. But aside that, I think what we choose to spend on our pets, if I want to buy Zuko toys, right, it's on me. He loves toys, so I choose to always, just pamper him with them. Or when I'm bringing him out to pet-friendly cafes, that's something that I want to do for him. So I always feel that that's the choice I make with my own budget.
I'm glad you brought up pet-friendly cafes because there are a ton of them. Now, there's even a mall just for animals. Do you guys like going to such cafes with your pets, or is it very stressful for the animal because there are so many others, and then I don't know, maybe some of them might be on guard or just scared of other dogs? What do you guys think?
Well, I do bring Bowie and Yoko out quite often, like every week, maybe to the mall, to the beach, to the cafe. They're not stressed out, but I know some dogs that can be. I think owners and people around just have to be aware of like the different signs if they are stressed, if they are like panting a lot or agitated.
This is particular to each animal, right?
Yeah,
it's not a blanket rule. You just have to really watch your animal.
There are species-specific things that you can take note of. Like, for example, cats or for dogs, usually when they are yawning, even if they are not bored, they have the aeroplane ear. So there are certain things that's more species-specific that you can take note of. But like, Jimmy said, when you know your pets, you would know that they're uncomfortable because, like us, they cannot actually walk out of an uncomfortable situation. Yeah, for Zuko, he does not like the beach. He doesn't like to swim, so I actually don't bring him to the beach.
How did you find out? He was like, no sand for me, please.
So usually I brought him out once to the beach, right? He does not go anywhere near the water. He hates it. So then I tried just putting him to the, the sandy area. He just lies down. He wants to go out and walk around the more grass patches. He's just exiting. So I just went out with him. He enjoys more quieter place with more people. He doesn't enjoy going to the malls or places that's too crowded with too many people surrounding him. He gets pretty uncomfortable and also easily scared. So I think that's when we talk about why is it that we need to ask whether someone can approach him. I think more than it's also their comfort, but another thing is, let's say if it was Zuko, right? He's feeling very uncomfortable and to a point threatened. The two things he can do: he can hide, run away, or he could try to bite the person because he's so scared. So I think it's to protect people and also protect them to ensure that everyone's safe, everybody's feeling comfortable. So I always say that don't crowd a dog. Usually we tell them if someone is walking by and they see Zuko and their first response is, he's so cute. I say, yes, but he's quite shy. So if you want to interact with him, maybe give him some time, get to his level, and then we'll see how comfortable he is.
Okay. I know you guys will say yes to my next question, but I want to ask about having pet care leave for the workplace, right? So I think last week ST reported about this. Agree? Would you want pet care leave in your workplace?
Yeah, definitely. Because we see pets as our child now. So if you have a child care leave, why not a pet care leave, right? Yeah.
At the SPCA, we do have
you have to.
Yes, we have family care leave, and our pets are family. So,
it comes under family care leave.
Yeah, so we have a separate family care leave. So it could be family, and pets are family members.
Correct.
So it could be myself bringing Zuko out, and I would just use my family care leave to bring him to his vet visit or anything.
What do you say to people who say, no, they're animals, they are not family?
Well, maybe they can opt out of a pet care leave themselves.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Singapore accommodates people with pets?
We are slowly moving there to be more inclusive, starting with the pet care leave. But I think much more needed to be done.
Like what?
Yeah. I think transportation, maybe, have some ways to regulate and to allow pets on public transport. It would help a lot. Yeah, like maybe, for example, if you allow, say, certain cabins to be pet friendly, so people that mind having pets on cabin, they can move to a different cabin. It will help a lot for a lot of pet owners, that don't have car, because it can be very expensive. Like per a single trip, it can be $30 for near distance, up to 50 even. Yeah.
I live at Serangoon North, so it's like they're giving away all free information. There's a lot of pet shops there, and then people generally have a lot of pets. And so one day I met this uncle and he has like parrots. And so he told me, you know what he did? He used to put them in bags, like a carrier bag, and he used to take them on the MRT. And he just poked holes in. And I was like, I think this is not allowed, uncle, but all right. Yeah. So he just wants to take them to the park, right? So that they can just, then I was like, oh, okay. Like he had to go through so much trouble because you can't bring the cage on the, Okay, I hope no one finds him after this. But, I hear you completely, because people want to take their pets everywhere and you can't be taking how many Grab pet taxis are there? Is it difficult to get one?
It's not difficult. I think it's just the cost. Yeah, so I am still able to try, go out with Zuko, but it's the costing and the timing, of course.
How much is like one way?
I think for me to bring him for his grooming, which is about 20 minutes away, I usually pay just one way would be about $30 to $35.
Yeah. So both ways would be 70.
Yes.
That's like the grooming cost already, right?
Yes. But I think when we talk about making places pet friendly, right, I think it goes two ways as well. I think as things have improved a lot in Singapore, now we are having pet friendly cafes. There are a lot of areas we could bring our pets as well. But also as pet owners, I think we also have to be very, very responsible. When we have more opportunities to bring them out and have new experiences, then we have to see how we can make that place, good for our pets, and also he's
doing a double dog. Okay, yes. But yes.
So comfortable for our pets, us, and also people around us. So some of our dogs, like Zuko, would be very, very curious about people. He might try to go near them, but they might not be very comfortable. So then it's on me, right, as his pet guardian, to ensure that, okay, Zuko, they're not very comfortable, so we give them the space they need. So I think.
Jamie, do you have like some last words for us for pawrents who are, especially first-time pawrents,
right,
about what they can do to make their pawrenthood a little bit easier?
I think it all starts from before owning the pet, to do a lot of research about, specific needs of the breed, the pet, and maybe, self-reflect a lot, to ask yourself, like, am I ready? Can I commit, not just for like a month or 2 months, but for years? Like maybe
sometimes it's more than decade, right?
Maybe even 50 years for birds, right? Some birds, they live 50 years. Yeah, so I think a lot of research needs to be done before they say, yes, okay, it's time to have one.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for being so informative and sharing your own experiences. Yeah. Okay, they've behaved quite well. So Yoko, Zuko, Bowie. Okay. Bowie. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you.
You can come back next time and then we'll get your point of view. Okay. So that's it from the usual place today. Now, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for fresh content. Now, you can also catch the audio version of this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on the ST app. I'll see you next time on the usual place. Bye.